Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 96 of the Watch Rolling Podcast. The Watch Rolling Podcast is a veteran-owned podcast that focuses on horology while sharing valuable resources with the watch enthusiast community. My name is Jason. I'm your host. If you're new to the pod, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Episode 96, Don't Yuck Someone's Yum. I'm pretty sure you saw the title. I just want to talk a little bit about objectivity and subjectivity, especially within the watch space, because I've just ran across, especially over the holiday season, just so many instances of people, I think, being kind of subjective when they're, what they're talking about really is an objective matter, right? And vice versa. And I just want to kind of cover it from my perspective and discuss the definitions of the words. So let's just get into it, because I think it'll help make everyone's watch enthusiast experience a lot better if we understand the two terms and then we apply them appropriately. So objectivity, right? Objectivity, things that are objective are stuff like facts, like size, water resistance. And I mean size with relation to a 100 millimeter watch would objectively be large, right? It's not necessarily too large to wear, right? Now, bear with me on this one. If this 100 millimeter watch weighed 100 pounds and a person wasn't capable of carrying around a 100-pound watch, then it might be too heavy for them to wear, right? That could be objective. You couldn't say it's too big for them to wear. They could wear whatever they want, but if they can't carry it, they can't wear it physically, that would be objective. The subjective part would be like, well, that's too big for you to wear. And it's like, well, not if it's not too heavy, right? They can wear whatever they want. It could be too big for a sleeve to get over, right? If you have a cuff sleeve or something. But if you're just wearing like a tank top and shorts and you can pull off a 100 millimeter watch, by all means, wear what you want, So stuff like facts like just the actual size and stuff like water resistance and stuff like the color, those are objective facts. Subjective stuff are preferences like style or comfort, right? I know plenty of things that are comfortable to me that for other people, they're not comfortable to wear. I have a larger wrist. I tend to wear a lot of short sleeve shirts at work, business casual shirts, because I've never been a big fan of long sleeve shirts. I mean, I wore long sleeve shirts in service forever. I feel like I'm being like choked at the wrist. I feel like I'm being choked everywhere. So I like to wear short sleeve business casual shirts. So I have a lot of watches that are a little bit thicker, but it doesn't really matter because I'm not wearing a cuff around them. So the watches aren't technically too thick for me to cuff my shirts. And then I have watches that are a little bit thinner. If there's a day where I have to wear a suit or I have to wear a tie, button down long sleeve collars, then I have some thinner watches that go with that kind of stuff, right? So why does this stuff matter? I mean, I think it matters because it's important to understand these two terms initially, because you want to, especially with newer watch enthusiasts, you want to welcome them in, right? Like, you definitely don't want to like pound down on them when they're just experiencing watches. And I know this for a fact because, I think I'm part of the group that was like the first watches we found, right? I found G-Shocks. I found a bunch of entry-level divers, right? Bigger stuff. And as I've gotten along, further along in the watch enthusiast space, I've come along many more well-refined, and I don't know how to say it, just my taste has evolved, right? And some of that taste is size, but not really. I mean, I tend to wear a lot of big watches still, but initially I had people would say stuff like, oh, that's too big for you to wear every day, or that's this, and it's really not, right? Or that's a big watch. Why'd you get this? That's so big. But I have a 7 5/8 inch wrist, right? So I have my Sangen Neptune, the Firefighter EMS edition. Beautiful watch. Some people think it's big, but on my 7 5/8 inch wrist, it's beautiful. Shout out to Sangen. They did a great job. And I think it just matters because you definitely don't want to make the beginning of a person's watch enthusiast voyage, journey, whatever you want to call it, just like you don't want to pound down on them, right? Because it's going to make it to where they don't feel included. And I think that's important. So watch size, let's talk about watch size. That's the biggest one I think I hear about from everybody, that, someone's always got a preference or, an opinion on watch size. So objective, like average size ranges. I did a search real quick, 36 millimeters to 42 millimeters. I did a Google search for like articles, right? And so I think for like the last 10 years, that's been the thing, right? There was that weird time long before I started collecting watches where people were like super big watches were in too. But even that shows something which I could touch on a little bit, right? So the average sizes are from 36 millimeter to 42. Now I have watches that go from as small as, I think, 36 up to like 44. And then I have a G-Shock, which is like, it's humongous. It's like 48. It's a big beefy watch. None of them are too big or too small for me to wear. I like them. Now, a 100 millimeter watch would be considered large compared to the average watches, which are 36 to 42, right? It doesn't mean it's too large for you to wear. So a subjective thing would be, for some, 100 millimeters might be a bold, perfect fit because personal choice matters, right? So I know people that love big, beefy beefy watches. And I have buddies that are into watches that they can pull them off because they're big, beefy people. And then I think if you're a small person, if the watch works for you, if it's bold and you feel great wearing it, or it just feels natural. I don't care if you got a 6.25 inch wrist. I don't care if you got a 8.25 inch wrist. I don't care, whatever. Wear what you want, because it being too big for you to wear is totally subjective. It being too big for you to fit through, I don't know, a door. If the watch was 50 inches wide and 50 inches thick, and the door was 24 inches wide, 24 inches tall, then maybe you're not going to get your watch to the door, right? But other than that, it's all subjective. So wear what you want. The key message is, if you're an enthusiast, especially a new one, I wouldn't let size preference limit your enthusiasm. If you like little small watches, there's tons of them out there. And like, a lot of the vintage stuff is smaller. If you like bigger stuff, or if you find yourself like me, who has a little bit of everything across the board, don't let what you hear about size for a watch affect your enthusiasm, right? If you see something small that you like, go get it. If you see something big that you like, go get it. I also offer people advice on, if you don't want to spend a bunch of money on like, say the watch is big, all things relative. Well, you can buy something like a G-Shock and wear that for a while, kind of get the size feeling to say, okay, is this something I can wear? Or is it unwieldy for me? And go that way first. You spend a little bit less money. You're like, yeah, I can wear something bigger. And then you work into the bigger ones before you spend a bunch of money on something big. So watch size, objective average sizes range from 36 millimeters to 100 millimeter watch would be large compared to that. And then subjective, for some people, that 100 millimeter watch might be just a bold, perfect fit, and they want to rock it all day. They might even want to double wrist it. So just don't let size preferences ever limit your enthusiasm, and don't put that on anybody else as well. Case thickness. Well, objective. Typical thickness is 10 millimeters to 12 millimeters, and 14 millimeter may not fit under a cuff. That would be an objective statement to say to someone. If you have a buddy, or he or she's looking for a watch and they wear business, like professional business attire, like suits, or pantsuits, or dresses. I know some dresses have long collars that are tight at the wrist. Maybe you tell them that 14 millimeter thick watch may not fit comfortably under the cuff. Doesn't mean they can't get it. Doesn't mean they can't wear it. It just may not fit comfortably under that cuff. So that would be one way to describe it to them, or let them know. Subjective would be, chunkier cases can feel robust and charming. It's all about what works for you, right? You can't tell someone that thing's too thick for you to wear just because, or it looks too thick on you. I mean, what does that even mean? I've heard that stuff from people like, oh, a super thick watch can't be comfortable. It's like, well, not to you because you're wearing it, but if I'm wearing it, it might be perfectly comfortable for me. Yeah, so comfort and style, that they basically trump arbitrary rules. So don't fall into the trap of something's too thick for you to wear whenever you want to. It might just be too thick for you to wear something that you have to wear as well. So like a suit or a long shirt. One of my favorite ones I've heard about are leather straps on dive watches. So objective, leather isn't water friendly. Dive watches typically use metal or rubber straps. Now that even is up for debate, because I've seen some old pictures of people wearing dive watches on leather straps, right? And I know leather, as long as you take care of it. I have some boots that have gotten saturated with water. I've had some boots that have got saturated with salt water. You rinse them off with fresh water, you soak them, you get them out, you shampoo them, you leather condition them, and then you put some cream polish on, and then on the harder parts you can put some harder polish. They'll work wonders, and you can get the leather back to where it's at. That's something just to think about. Subjective, leather can add elegance, style over tradition, right? Example, a vintage dive watch on a distressed leather strap. So I've seen people do that all the time too, and I think it looks great. I tend to keep my dive watches on bracelets. The further along I even go, I've like given away a lot of straps. Like I'm realizing I'm not a strap guy. Even in the summer, I'll just wear my bracelet throughout the summer. And every couple of weeks, I'll clean it with some soap and water, rinse it out with some fresh water, and just keep wearing the bracelet, because to me, the bracelet feels right for me. It just feels better for me. The strap thing, I'm just not, I can never get it quite right. I think it's because I have a funny size wrist, to where the holes in the straps, if they're not like super reinforced holes in the straps, or it's just the dimensions between the holes, I just can't get quite a right fit on it. So for me, I've learned that bracelets, especially with good micro adjust, I can really dial that bracelet in, have a little bit of jangle, just a little bit of jangle on it, and then it just wears comfortably for me and feels right. Right. But leather straps on dive watches. I mean, some people say leather isn't water friendly. I guess if you're going in the water every single day, 365 days a year, you're going to have a hard time keeping that leather supple. But if you're just taking it in there occasionally and you take care of the leather afterwards, you can do what you got to do. And I'm a firm believer, like I said, subjectively, it can add some elegance to me. I think that some leather straps are just beautiful. You see it, certain metal colors with a nice pairing on leather. It just works. So again, objective versus subjective. But the key message is guidelines aren't rules, right? Just because you hear a bunch of people on video saying you can't wear leather with a dive watch. I mean, wear whatever the heck you want, right? And I think that the longer you get into the watch enthusiast space, that's what you're going to do. You're just going to wear whatever you like. And it takes a little bit of practice as far as like handling different watches and having them on, which is always why it's nice to, be around groups and you can like experience other watches. But, eventually, just wear what you want. Gatekeeping, avoiding gatekeeping. This is something. So for those you don't know, back in the day, especially during COVID, I met a great group of people and I got into painting Warhammer miniatures, right? And, like anything, any good thing, it runs its course. And I basically had essentially, I don't know, an expensive Oris worth of 40K figurines that I eventually gave away. But, there was a big thing about gatekeeping in there too for people who had been in long or, they don't really like change and et cetera, et cetera. They were trying to make it hard for people that were getting into the hobby. And I've seen some of that in watches as well, right? So like just be careful with that. Think about your impact of criticism. Like harsh judgments can discourage new enthusiasts. I see stuff about like, don't buy Invicta, don't have a collection of G-Shocks, like don't do this, don't do that. But it's like, dude, if they're new and they're figuring it out, right, what they like, right, what their yum is, don't yuck it. Like encourage it. Tell them like, if someone's really into G-Shocks, be like, hey, did you know that you can go to shoppinginjapan.net? This video is not brought to them by them, but it'd be nice if they was. But tell them, do you know about shoppinginjapan.net where you can get all kinds of cool JDM Casio, your G-Shocks and stuff? They're awesome. That might be instead of saying, oh, you just can't have a whole collection of G-Shock. Think about diversity and taste, right? Subjective choices add vibrancy to the community. I have plenty of friends, and like my buddy Chris, man. Chris, Popping Crowns on Instagram. If you don't know him, go follow him, poppingcrowns.com. He doesn't sponsor the website, the podcast or anything, but he great guy. And Chris is a color aficionado. Is that the right thing? Maybe. But Chris has a lot of color in his collection, right? And, he has some serious, more subtle pieces, but he has serious color. Even his bronze Black Bay, right? You would think that's not a color at first glance, but then when you see it in person, it really is just like a form of like brown and warm amber type colors. And especially as a patinas, it's like a natural color where some of like his Nomo stuff is like a real pop of color, like boom, right? You can tell it's artificial, but it's still his whole collection's got this wonderful amount of color in it. And it just shows you the diversity in that one person's watch collection, right? As opposed to mine, which, Chris has helped me get some more color into my collection. I wasn't much of a gold guy and I have my two-tone speedy reduced. That's led to my SRPC 44, gold tuna on a gold Jubilee, which is so obnoxiously great. I can't help it. Love it. It's just amazing. And it's fun, right? And so, maybe if I don't meet Chris, maybe if Chris doesn't become my friend, I get a lot less color. I mean, if he's not my friend, I definitely have less color in my watch enthusiast journey. But maybe I would have less color in my own watch and my watch collection, right? So, those are the things I thought about when it came to objectivity and subjectivity. And you know me, I try to keep these videos a little bit short. I don't want to go on too long and drag you on for an hour. But watch size. I mean, just think about it, right? A watch can be too big for certain things. It can be too big to fit through something. It can be too big to go under a sleeve. It can't be too big for someone to wear. Right? They can wear whatever they want. You just adapt your clothing to it. It could be too heavy for someone, but I've never seen a watch that heavy, but it could be. It could be, I don't know. That's about it. That's the biggest one I could think of, too heavy. Case thickness, right? Some watches are too thick to wear with certain things, but no watch is too thick for anyone to wear, right? Like where there's a will, there's a way. Leather straps on dive watches. That's just my funniest example I could think of because, people rail about it. Oh, you can't wear leather straps. You want to wear a leather strap on a diver, just make sure you take care of the leather, right? And make sure it's a good leather. There's plenty of strap companies out there that they use really good leather. I'm sure if you get something from like, I guess like Temu or something, like if you're paying $4 for a leather strap, then fully expect your leather strap not to be able to handle the grind of some water sports, right? So, take it all with a grain of salt and think about it before you do it. Gatekeeping, that's the biggest one. Like it's something I've tried really hard not to do, is to gatekeep. I try to share knowledge freely. I try to share resources. When anyone's kind enough to share their collection with me, whether it's at a Red Bar meetup or whether it's at a watch show or something, I really take a step back inside of myself and take a look at this piece. And it's cool, especially as I get to know the person, right? As I get to know the person, that watch takes on much more of a life of its own, right? And it's funny too, because it's fun to, especially newer watch enthusiasts, to kind of see how they grow and evolve in the space, right? In their own little journey. And it's pretty awesome, but just, be aware of harsh criticism, especially if you are at the point where you just have more experience than they do. And that's the one thing I've always appreciated is, I've ran across so many enthusiasts who have been doing this since like, late 90s, maybe even late 80s, early 2000s. And, they've just been warm and inviting, and they share knowledge freely, and they help you out along your way. And, it's just awesome, and helps you out. So just be careful. And diversity in taste. I can't help that enough, right? Like, there's plenty of fun options out there that are not expensive. All things relative, right? Like, under $100. If you're interested in trying out color, go buy some more affordable ones and wear them and see if you like them, right? Like, do I need this? Do I want this color in my collection? Do I want some more color? Do I need it? You can figure it out by just having some diversity in taste and appreciating everybody else's diversity in taste. So to wrap up the podcast, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for just tuning in. I appreciate it. I know I took a little bit of a break. I got a new camera. I don't know if you can tell. I got a new light. I think I'm going to have to tone it down a little bit because I got a little warm in here, but it's cold outside. So the heater's on. So you know how that works. But I appreciate you tuning in. It's going to be a weekly podcast like it was again. Keep it about 20, 30 minutes like normal. I hope you like the new camera. If you got any advice, I'd love to hear it down in the notes. Tell me, what are some objective versus subjective things that you've heard about or that have kind of rubbed you the wrong way, or some things that you thought one way about and now you think about them differently. Let me know down in the towel section. I'd love to know about it. And just remember that, facts are helpful, and passion, it's what drives and thrives in personal preferences, right? It's just, you never want to use facts or skewed facts to kill someone's passion, especially when they're involved in the same hobby that we're involved in, right? And then, like I said earlier, share your unconventional watch choices and feedback. And remember, at watchrolling.com, you make the watch. The watch doesn't make you.